Hello, this is Mr. Henry and welcome to lesson 2.3. This lesson is going to talk about subtracting real numbers. So again with fractions and decimals and whole numbers and integers. Okay, so the essential question says, how do I subtract real numbers? There you go. So let's see. The first four get the goose here are just seeing if you remember how to add. So here I have two numbers with the same sign. They're both negative. So you should add, so you get the 4, but you keep the sign of the bigger number to -4. Number 2, 5 plus -2. Those signs are different. So you would subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. And then you keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's a +3. Number 3 says -1/5 plus 1/2. Well, you cannot just add like that. You have to have common denominators. So let's get rid of him. And between 5 and 2, the least common denominator is going to be 10. Because 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 times 5 is 10. So you take the top number times 5. 1 times 2 is 2, and don't forget about your negative. Now you have the same denominator, so now you can do your addition and subtraction. So the signs are the same, or I'm sorry, the signs are different, so you subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number, positive. And the last one here, the decimals, the signs are different, so we would subtract. And the way we subtract decimals is we line up the decimals. And borrow, 7, 18, 9, 7, and there are more negatives, so the answer is negative. And there we go. So that's what we did with addition. Now, you're going to see today that subtraction is almost identical. There's only one small thing we're going to do differently. Before we get there, we've got a vocab word, opposites, which we've already talked about. Opposites are two numbers that when you add them together are 0, like 3 and -3. 3 plus -3 is 0. So those two numbers would be considered opposites. So in our vocabulary box, we have this same deal. What I'd like you to do is, if you could, fill in as much information as we filled out in the last lesson. So fill in the addition column, this area in here. So take a second or two, pause the video, fill that out as much as you can. Okay? So you should have said, if the signs are the same, you add the numbers together. If the signs are different, you subtract the numbers. And then you keep the sign of the bigger number. Those are the rules for addition. Now, we have a subtraction rule that is very simple. Okay? The rule we use for subtraction is, you guys are going to like this, KFC. So not KFC as in the chicken. This is KFC that stands for keep, flip, change. So write that underneath. Keep, flip, change. So basically what's going to happen is every time you see a subtraction sign in a problem, you're going to do this keep, flip, change thing. What that will do is it will change it into an addition problem, which we learned how to do in the last lesson, and which hopefully is pretty easy. Okay? So we're going to use this KFC, keep, flip, change it to addition. Then we just follow those normal addition rules we have right up top here. So let's see how that works out. First problem here is -5 minus 4. So we have a subtraction. So we're going to use KFC. So we're going to keep the first number the same. We're going to flip the sign from a minus to a plus. Then we change the sign of the second number. Now this number was positive, or is positive now, so we make it a negative. So we've done keep, flip, change. Now you see we have a plus sign. So we're going to follow our normal addition rules. And our normal addition rules say that those two numbers have the same sign, so we need to add together and then keep the sign of the bigger number negative. Okay, let's see example B. So we're going to keep the first number the same, change the sign of the second number, flip the sign from subtract to plus, and then change the sign of the second number. It's positive, so we change it to negative. Now, the signs are different, so we subtract the numbers. 15 minus 6 is 9. And we keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative. All right, letter C. Now we've got some decimals. So first, let's do our KFC, because there's a subtraction sign here. So we keep the first number the same, flip the sign, change the sign of the second number. Now we do our addition rules because we have an addition problem. So the signs are the same, so we add. And we're going to add a negative 8 plus a 3.2. So these are both negative. Now, look what I did here. I'm lining up my decimals, and I know if there's no decimal in the number, if you don't see it, it means this is a whole number and the decimal's at the end. So my decimals were still lined up, and yours should be 2. If you set it up like 3.2 and 8 like that, you're going to get a very wrong answer. Now, we are adding because the signs are the same. So 2 and 8 plus 3 is 11. And then we keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's a negative 11.2. Letter D, fractions. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to KFC this. So keep, flip, change. Now this is a negative, so when we change it, we're going to change it to a positive. This problem looks a lot simpler to do than that. Now we find our common denominators, rewrite our fractions, all that mumbo-jumbo we've done before. So if you think of your times tables of 8, what's the first number that 5 goes into? And I believe the answer is 40. So this one's going to take times by 8. This one we're going to take times by 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 8 is 24. Add them together. 25 plus 24 is 49 out of 40. This is an improper fraction, so we have to change it to a mixed number. 40 goes into 49 one time. Denominator stays the same. And now how much would you have to add to get to 49? 40 times 1 is 40, plus 9 more gives you 49. And we're done. All right. So we've done 4 examples here. I have 4 examples for you to try. Please do letters E, F, G, H right now in your papers. Pause the video, do the problems. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okay, letter E. So first thing I do is I KFC, because there is a subtraction sign right there. So negative 4.5 plus, and I change this to a positive 2.1. Keep, flip, change. Now my signs are different, so I have to subtract. So 4.5, 2.1, we're going to subtract this thing. 5 minus 1 is 4, 4 minus 2 is 2, And is this going to be a positive or negative? Well, you keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative. So it's a negative 2.4. Letter F, negative 9 minus 2. Okay, so negative 9 plus a negative 2. The signs are the same, so we add, keep the sign of the bigger number, negative 11. Letter G, we have to have common denominators, but before we do that, let's do our KFC. So 2/9 plus a negative 5/6. The signs are different. We need to subtract. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. There. Get out of Inspector Clouseau's head over there. All right, so 9 and 6, least common denominator. Count by 9s till you find something that 6 goes into. 9, 18. 6 goes into 18, so that is the least common denominator. Because if I take 6 times by 3, I get 18, and 9 times by 2, I get 18. So 5 times 3 is 15. Don't forget your negative. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, now what we have is we have to subtract this. We have a common denominator of 18, and 15 minus 4 is 11, and keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative. So we got a negative 11/18. And letter H, we have to do our KFC, so we're going to have a positive 7 plus a negative 18.3. This has different signs, so we're going to subtract. Put 18.3 on top, 7.0. It's a whole number, so it's 0.0 on the bottom, and we are subtracting. Decimals are lined up. So subtract 3, 1, 1, and we keep the sign of the bigger number. There are more negatives than positives, so it is a negative 11.3. Okay? So, we've seen now subtracting with fractions, subtracting with decimals, and subtracting with integers. I would like you to do page 80, numbers 1, 2, and 3, these 3 problems you see here. Right now, pause the video, do them on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through them together. Okay, so let's see here. KFC, so negative 2 plus a negative 7. The signs are the same, so we need to add, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, negative 9. Number 2, let's see, 11.7 minus, okay, so minus a negative, this is something you're going to see quite a bit. Anytime you have minus a negative, it really means plus, because if you do your KFC, this turns into a plus, that turns into a positive 5, which we don't need parentheses for. So minus a negative turns into plus a positive. It just turns into plus. That's something you'll see quite a bit throughout the entire school year. Okay, so 11.7 plus 5. The signs are the same. We're going to add 11.7 plus 5.0 gives us 7.61, 16.7, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, which is positive, so our answer is positive. Number 3, we have our 1/3 plus a negative 1/2, and if you couldn't tell, yeah, you have to subtract them. Signs are different. Subtract. Got it. Okay. Common denominator is 6, because you can take this one times by 2 to get 6, and this one times by 3 to get 6. Negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. So we have common denominators, so now we can do our math, which is subtraction. Denominator stays the same. 3 minus 2 is 1, and you keep the sign of the bigger number, negative 1. And that would be done. Alright, so that's just a bit more practice, and that's the whole point of this entire lesson, is really just practicing these types of problems. So here we've got a couple more. Now these are slightly different because now they're giving us variables. And they actually tell us what the variables are. They say x is 4.6, y is negative 4, and z is 1/3. So all we do is we take those letters and substitute them into our problems, and then we do the math. So let's see, letter A. I'm going to take y minus x. Okay, so y is a negative 4, see, minus x is 4.6. We substituted. Second step, now we need to do our KFC because we have a subtraction. So negative 4 plus a negative 4.6. Now, the signs are the same, so we add those numbers together. And so we have a 4.0 and a 4.6. We're adding up. We're going to get 8.6. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative 8.6. Letter B. Same thing. We're going to substitute, then KFC, and then I guess this last step is called evaluate. So substitute 1/3 minus a negative, and z is 1/3. KFC, so we're going to do keep, flip, change. This turns into 1/3 plus 1/3. Keep, flip, change. And 1/3 was plus 1/3 is easy for us. We get 2/3. Substitute, KFC, evaluate. And I would like you to try. There are letters C and D for you to do. Go ahead and pause the video. Do them on your own. When you're ready to continue or you need a little help, hit play and we'll go through it together. Okay, so we substitute 3 inside his head, and it's, ooh, wrong button. Let's do black. We haven't done black in a while. All right, so we got 3 minus y, which is a negative 4. So 3 minus a negative 4 plus x is 4.6. All right, so 3 minus a negative 4. If we KFC this part, we get a 3 plus a positive 4 plus 4.6. And that's actually pretty easy to do now. Add them up. So 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 4.6. Now, again, this is a 7.0. So 7.0 plus 4.6 is 11.6. If you don't believe me, there you go. Letter D. X is 4.6 minus y is a negative 4 squared. All right, order of operations. Order of operations says we've got to do the exponent part before we do adds and subtract. So we got to take this negative 4 squared, which in hindsight we haven't really learned how to do multiplication, but I'll tell you now. Negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be a positive 4. Now we see, well, the signs are different. We consider subtract it. Now, here's one thing to point out. That rule of KFC. You do not have to do KFC every single time there's a subtraction. What it helps you do is it helps you simplify uglier subtraction problems. This problem, for example, 4.6 minus 4 is not that ugly. If we do KFC, 4.6 plus a negative 4, Is this really any better than that? Probably not. It's probably a little bit more complicated because now you've got more stuff you have to have in there. So the KFC is used to make a subtraction problem easier to do. If the subtraction problem is already easy, like this one, you don't have to do KFC. Let's get to it. 4.6 minus 4.0 is going to be a 0.6. And if you want proof, minus 4.0, subtract is 6, subtract is 0. Yeah, keep the sign of the bigger number, it's positive. There we go. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, wait a second, that dude made a mistake, you're absolutely right. I just noticed it. Because 4 times 4 is not 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Sorry if you wrote your stuff in pen. Use a pencil. So 4.6 minus 16. Now, I would probably use KFC because now you get 4.6 plus a negative 16. The signs are different. Subtract 16.0 minus 4.6. 5, 10, 4.11. So 11.4. And we keep the sign of the bigger number, which is a negative 11.4. So, yeah, I made a mistake. 4 squared is not 4. 4 squared is 16. And we go from there. All right. I guess we're on to example 3. Now, before we get to example 3, here's just a little bit of background information for you. So it says a little higher math for you. Change is typically written as this triangle y, which is also the Greek letter delta. But it stands for change in y. And we find the change in y by taking the second value minus the first one. So we have y2, the second one, minus the first one. Later on in this year, we'll see the same idea when we're talking about slope. So we have slope. This is actually, literally, this is the formula for finding slope of a line. Slope equals change in y over change in x, which to find the change in y is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Says this is also used a lot in physics. For example, this delta v, or triangle v, change in v, is the change in velocity of an object. Now, what should you take from all this information? This. When you're finding the change of something, you take the second one minus the first one. So if you're talking about temperatures, you take the later temperature minus the earlier temperature. If you're talking about the price of an object, if something like went up in price or down in price, you take the second price minus the first price, and that is how you find change. Okay? That's the important thing to get from this information, and let's see how it's applied. Here in letter A, it says Bill was running low on money, and his bank account showed negative $26.58. Later that day, he got paid, and now his bank account shows $175.19. What was the change in Bill's bank account? So to do this properly, we're going to take the second one minus the first one. The second value, the value we had later in the day, was this 175.19. That's the second value. Minus the first value, which was a negative 26.58. Now, when we do this subtraction, now first off we have to do our KFC because we have subtracting, and minus a negative is really a plus. So this becomes 175.19 plus a positive 26.58. And to add those numbers together, I'm literally just going to write it out over here. 175.19, 26.58 plus 9 plus 8 is 17, carry the 1, 7.11, carry the 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, carry the 1, 2. So the change is 201.77, and it is a positive change. So see if that answer makes sense to you. The change was $201.77. Well, if you think about it, he was down here. This is zero money. He was down here at negative 26 money. I'm ignoring the 58 cents for now. I'm just going to go with the main idea. So he was like at negative $26. Then he got paid from here, and he went up here to 175.19. What we're trying to do, or what we did, is we figured out what is the distance, how much money is it from here to here. It will be more than 175 because here's 0. From here up is 175. Here down is the 26. So it's the total distance that we're looking for, and that's the 201. That's why it's so very important to put the second number minus the first one. If you did it the other way around, you're not going to get the same answer. Letter B says the temperature outside one morning was 14 degrees. By midday, the temperature was negative 3 degrees. What was the change in temperature? So we're going to take the second one minus the first one. So which temperature was second? Well, this was morning. This was afternoon. So the afternoon one was later in the day. So the second one minus the first one. And now we do our KFC, negative 3 plus a negative 14. Those signs are the same, so we're going to add. So we get a negative 17. So the change in temperature was negative 17 degrees. Again, let's see if that makes sense. That is a sweet thermometer. All right, here's 0 degrees. The temperature outside in the morning was up here someplace at 14. By midday, it was down here at negative 3. So the change from here, it had to go down 14 degrees just to get to 0, and then down 3 more to get to negative 3. So the total change was a negative, because it went down, a negative 17 degrees. Okay? Hopefully that's making sense to you on why it's a negative 17. And we've got, I think, one more problem. And this is one I'm going to have you do on your own. Then we'll do a couple from the textbook, and we're done. Here it says, when the original Xbox came out in 2002, it cost $499. By the time the Xbox 360 came out, the original Xbox price had dropped to $249. What was the change in price of the Xbox? So I'd like you to find the change in price of the Xbox right now. Pause the video, do it on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okay, so hopefully you took the second price minus the first price. That's how you find the change of something. The second thing minus the first thing. So the second price, the one that happened later, was $249. Minus the other one was $499. So second minus first. We're going to do a little KFC here. 249 plus a negative 499. The signs are different, so we have to subtract. Surprise, surprise. That's how you find differences. You subtract. Or find a change as you subtract. All right, so we got to subtract these guys. So $499 minus $249, 0, 5, 2. So the change was $250, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, which was negative. Why is that a negative 250? Now, you could have come up with two answers in your head. You could have said it's negative because we kept the sign of the bigger number. Yeah, but that's not really what I was looking for. I was looking for that number is negative because the price went down. It was a negative change in price. All right. Last 4 problems of the day. Here we have numbers 4 through 7 from page 81. Go ahead, pause the video, do these 4 problems right now, and we'll get back together here in just a second. Okay, so let's see. Number 4. I'm going to be substituting as I'm writing down. So x is negative 3 minus y is 5.2 plus 8. All right. If you don't know what you have to do to these numbers, like if you don't know if you have to add them or subtract them, use KFC. Negative 3 plus a negative 5.2 plus 8. Oh, those two numbers have the same sign, so you're going to add them together. And negative 3 plus negative 5.2, do the work off the side of your paper if you need to. I don't. It gives you a negative 8.2. Now we have a negative 8.2 plus 8, which negative 8.2 plus 8, the signs are different. We have to subtract. That's an 8.0, negative 0.2. Don't believe me? Write that up and down on your own. 8.2, 8.0, subtract them, 0.2. Keep this on the bigger number. It's negative. Moving on, number 5. Y says 5.2 minus, and we've got our parentheses here, a negative 3 minus 2. Okay, here, because we're doing the stuff inside parentheses first, because that's what the order of our operation tells us to do, we're going to use KFC. So negative 3 plus a negative 2. 5.2 minus this stuff. Okay, so negative 3 minus 2. The signs are the same. We add. Keep this on the bigger number. Negative 5. Let me try that again. 5.2. So we have 5.2 minus a negative 5. And KFC this again because this minus and negative is a little ugly. That's much better as plus a positive 5. And now when you add 5.2 and 5.0, because it's a whole number, 5.0, you get 10.2. And lastly, number 6. So we got 5.2 minus 4 minus negative 3. Okay, so parentheses first. 5.2 minus 4. 5.2 minus 4.0 gives me 1.2, and it's positive because you keep the sign of the bigger number, minus a negative 3. Okay? Minus a negative is the same thing as plus a positive. 1.2 plus 3. Keep, flip, change. Add those two things together. 3 plus 1.2 is 4.2. And that's number 6. Okay, I'm going to erase those 3 problems to make room for my number 7. So you got 3, 2, 1, all gone. All right, number 7. It says a new car is valued at $15,000. 1 year later, the car is valued at $12,300. What is the change in value of the car? So we're going to take y2 minus y1, the second value minus the first one. So the one that happened later was the 12,300 minus the 15,000. Keep, flip, change, 12,300, it's a comma, not a decimal, plus a negative 15,000. The signs are different, subtract. Now, when you subtract, you always put the bigger number on top. All right, let's subtract. 0, 0. Cannot subtract it. Borrow. 7, 2, 0. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative, because the price went down by $2,700. That's why it's a negative change. The price went down. And there we go. So, summary. How do you subtract real numbers? Go ahead, pause the video, write a sentence or two on your paper, and we'll get back together in just a second. Okay, so I came up with a solution, answer. It says you subtract real numbers by doing KFC to change the subtract into addition. Then you follow your addition rules. Hopefully you said something about the same. Homework is page 82, numbers 1 and 2, and then 3 through 42 multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12. You'll see it's actually not that many problems because you're skipping 2 problems in between each problem. This has been lesson 2.3. Thank you for watching.